where we're thinking creatively on how we can deal with storefront vacancy. How can we approach this challenge in a creative way that brings in sort of the vibrancy of the neighborhoods that we're working in, and attach it to art and culture?
There's a real recognition that a lot of the neighborhoods in New York City have been underinvested in, and a lot of the designers that approach us want to get involved in undoing some of that.
I really loved that the program was trying to make use of spaces that are ultimately private, but they function as public spaces. Vacant spaces are publicly felt. We interface with storefronts in a really important way, and so making sure that those spaces are active and in use by the public is pretty critical to creating a space that feels inviting, safe, holistic, representative.
We love working with our small organizations because they kind of help us to think about how we can scale up these ideas for bigger strategies and policies, and to help the city think outside of the box. But it's more than that. How can we connect these organizations to arts and cultures and institutions, design firms, so that we can think really creatively?
We put out an application for community partners to tell us what projects they have in their communities that they want to conduct alongside Van Alen. We partner them with those designers, whether it's artists, architects, planners, engineers, and then for 8 weeks they meet with Van Alen and those designers and put together a strategy, a plan, a design for their organization or their community.
The Grand Street bid is one of the older bids in New York. The role of the bids has really grown to one of meaningful community impact and advocacy, and we are responsible for everything from street sweeping to advocacy and city planning. In the face of rapid development, representation is super important. We want to make sure the community feels integrated and part of their community and their neighborhood and their space, that they're represented, and that they can live, work, and play safely and happily.
Our goal with the mural was to create a space where the community could kind of reflect on the past, present, and future of the neighborhood. And we got really excited about sourcing archival imagery from different archives. You can see some of the archival imagery in black and white. We also, with the help of Grand Street Bid, sourced current imagery from businesses and community organizations, and then we added our own elements too. Yeah, hopefully this will cause someone to stop and look at this building that's been vacant for a long time.
So working with Grand Street Bid, I learned more what's happening in my own neighborhood. These sculptures are also reflecting what people do, and it's an invitation to the community to share their stories and their collective memories.
Overall, the more crazy the world gets and harder it is to sort of feel connected to things at a larger, more national level, being able to work in smaller scales feels really nice and important, and you can actually, do something that matters.
I mean, I can't imagine anything happening, anything moving without Van Alen's devoted and warm, hard work. They stewarded us and our vision every step of the way. They always centered, priorities for the community, and I can see very clearly why everyone wants to work with Alen Institute all the time. It's a wonderful group of collaborators.
People talk a lot about the power of community land trusts and limited equity buildings to preserve housing, but there's also this kind of amazing effect it has on the commercial spaces.
Foursquare is a community-based organization that's been in the Lower East Side for over 65 years. We've been at the vanguard of community-based planning and organizing since our founding. HDFC, or Housing Development Fund Corporation, is a type of low-income housing. So people who just were willing to put in the sweat equity or to put in the work to renovate their buildings were able to then become shareholders in this co-op.
A lot of things have changed, but a lot of things have stayed in place. And a lot of people have been pushed out through various forces, but a lot of people remain. And that didn't happen by accident or by magic. It happened through concerted organizing and engagement over the course of, in some cases, decades.
My buddy Sean is building this giant box. So the box is going to be the structure of the window, and inside I'm going to put probably hanging from the ceiling, and also with some shelves and some cubes, some products and some memorabilia and some artifacts from the neighborhood, from HTFC storefronts.
What I did was create a display to accompany this installation that the artist made, featuring objects from the businesses, and the display contextualized the stories that some of the business owners told about what it's like to work in these co-ops, using craft paper and blue masking tape, which are kind of like the quintessential elements you see within the storefronts when they're waiting for a tenant or when they're in between tenants. So these kind of really humble materials, commonplace materials were repurposed.
Yeah, I think it was really important to us to not use generic imagery, to use really, to have a visual impression that spoke to the existing material culture of the neighborhood. The way that the design team worked had to be reflecting that at every stage, which is why we had to use these objects, which is why we had to do all of these deep, engaged interviews with different small businesses, cultural institutions, and nonprofits that are in the storefronts. We're hoping that people will open their eyes and begin to understand and see something that maybe they hadn't noticed before. So I hope people will get a little bit of inspiration in that story and will find themselves in its continuation.